king, tell the king what the man who sent the message to the trumpet say. It works. Every organ in your body has its own pulsation and its own rhythm. You go to the doctors in America, they take one pulse, plus your heart, at your wrist. You go to any good acupuncturist, they take 8 pulses before they even start to work on it. Did you know that? Oh. Some of you know who I medicine. They take 8 pulses because they understand that every organ in your body has a pulse. And it's different. And if I'm going to work on somebody, I got to make sure that every one of its systemic parts is functioning at its optimal level so I don't cause any greater harm by working on it for one thing or the other. Well, when we talk about our culture, our music, our dancing, we talk about the same thing. How many people remember the song? And if I sing, and I can't sing with the damn, if I sing, y'all better sing, right? You remember when the civil rights workers went in the church? In any church in the South, when you see the footage of them, you know, and they start, one thing they do before they go out in the street, they ain't got no guns. All the Klan people out there want to hurt them. So they'll start singing. Like King or somebody else will be up there and they'll start singing. You know, before I be a slave, what's the next word? What's the name of the song? Oh, freedom. Sing the song. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my God and be free. And they carried on. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, you know what they do? They do that until they're synchronized. So it isn't one person, a bunch of individuals going out in that street on that march. They got an army of one, though it's thousands, because they use that music and they use that rhythm to synchronize. So the rhythm in me hook up with the rhythm in you. And that cracker knew when they walked out there, they knew I'm dealing with something greater than a handful of individual black people. But we don't study our culture and our people and ourselves, so we don't understand what we are and what we do. And that's why we get started all part lines. I know I'm messing vocabulary up here, but I'm good at this. But we're going to do it faster. Now, one of the things we must do, Dr. Jeffries always pointed to, is a system. In order to fight a system, we must create a system. We must understand ourselves and formulate ourselves a system. So what is the definition for a system? A group having the same or similar structure and which acts as a unit in performing a vital function, an orderly combination of arrangement of parts into a whole, specifically such combination according to some rational principle and methodical arrangement of parts. An orderly, interconnected, complex arrangement of parts, a set of principles linked to form a coherent doctrine, a method of organization, administration, or procedure. We are not systemically arranged. We're not a people. We're a label. Africa is a label. Nigeria, that's a label. Even when we say Igbo, unless you're in the culture, it's a label. African American is a label. How do we make that label into a people, into a systemic unit? That's what we've been talking about all day, Dr. Jeffries, and the noble. How do we do that? How do we get to know the divine in ourselves so that we can recognize the divine in the other, so we can set up a communication, set up a relationship? And the tiny lights that emanated from the great light, by uniting again, forms the great light, which is the divine itself. Go to the next one. I was talking about economic organization. We want people to go past it. Cultural organization. This is important. I got a long definition of culture. So walking with the culture is easy, but that's a long definition. And I'm going to read it. Yes, I know. Culture, training, improvement, and refinement of mind, morals, of taste, to develop or grow. Culture is the tool that gives the people their shared definition of reality, their sense of order, and maintain group integrity. I think they got that from Asa, because he was heavy on that. Culture is the training and development of the mind. Culture is the refinement of tasks and manners acquired by such training. Culture also involves the social, religious structure that produce the intellectual and the artistic manifestation that characterize a society, like the dance, the music, the musical instrument, the clothing, the housing style, and so forth. Culture is responsible for the rearing, cultivating in a prepared manner, in a prepared medium, the next generation. Culture maintains the group's historical consciousness. Culture is the education and spiritual system, i.e. the socializing instrument determining our values, interests, and principles. Culture should be viewed as a scientific construct representing the vast structure of language, behavior, custom, knowledge, symbols, ideas, and values which provide our people with a general design for living and patterns for interpreting reality. You have any technical difficulties again? No. Okay. Culture is the expression of a people's efforts to evolve a mode of life suitable to its environment, and a modification in that environment demands any modification in that environment demands corresponding modification in the culture. Culture is the means by which a people protect themselves from genocide. I got that one from Sister Marimba, that last one. Go. You don't like the little button that ain't working? It's either upside down V or a straight side down V. You're making life complicated. But this is the last piece on culture. This is Dr. Jeffries' old friend. This is Professor Akinjoba, Dr. Jeffries, and he wrote this book just before he passed away 6 years ago. He said, in actual fact, culture consists of, and Professor Akinjoba was the chancellor of the University of Ife, I think, in Nigeria. He said, in actual fact, culture consists of all the items in the life of a group of human beings which make them to feel belonging to one another. That piece you need to get. Which make them to feel belonging to one another and distinct from any other group around them. It comprises their language, religion, dress, social system, economic system, political system, food, leisure, medical system, and technological knowledge. Dr. Akinjoba further states that culture is not static. This part is very important. We are caught in this, but we don't know how to interpret it. It is dynamic. Certain items that are no longer useful at a particular period in a particular culture can be discarded and are usually discarded in favor of new items that would suit the circumstances of the time. Now we get caught there and we pick up other people's garbage to substitute instead of creating, with an understanding of our circumstances, the replacements for the things that are no longer useful in this situation we find ourselves in. Let's go to the next. Consciousness, Dr. Noble laid that out, went quite beyond what I'm saying, so I don't have to stop on this one. Go to the next one. Spirituality. This is one of my takeaways. I like this first 3 words, that spirituality is reality. It is being conscious of the moment you are living in, being guided by the wisdom of our collective ancestors and the divine laws of nature. But I note today you added something else to that, so I might have to give it to you. But that's where I got with it at the time. Spirituality is a systematic understanding of our relationship to the Creator and creation, deriving from our ancestors' observation, examination, contemplation, and study of the universes and its immediate environment and ecology. Spirituality occurs when one is conscious of their immediate reality and is actively involved in it. Spirituality is the resulting condition, habits, practices, principles, concepts, ideas, and rituals that inform the culture that instruct the societies Africans build. This body of knowledge is derived from being instructed and informed by our ancestors and the divine laws of nature. It is, of course, God, the Creator, and creation itself, that are our original and primary ancestor. Thus, we are always aware of the fact that we are being having the human experience. Spirituality in its fullness is being conscious of and actively involved in you, second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month, and year by year reality. Spirituality is being communal, collective, and cooperative. Religion is an important word because we play with that and it's got us jacked. Because even I notice when we come into consciousness, we're still scared that if we get too far from that religion, something bad gonna happen. So we'll dip our foot in the little African water and we'll wave our hands over the African water, but we won't jump in. You know? So religion, from the Greek ari, to go back or do over, and legio, to bind. Religion means to bind back. A religious system should bind people or persons back to the wisdom, worldview, or culture of their ancestors, and should bring about a belief binding the spiritual nature of a person or a group to a supernatural or divine being, as involved in a feeling of dependence and responsibility, together with the feeling and practice which naturally flow from such a belief. Religion includes worship or the reverence of the human spirit for divine seeking outward expression. And I'm going to do a little bit on ether. The ether concept of cosmology. Now, ether is the philosophical system we operate in when we say we are part of the Yoruba expression of our ancestors' understanding of reality. So the ether we have a concept of creation, we have a concept of evolution, we have a concept of sociology, we have a concept of psychology, we have a concept of transformation, we have a concept of destiny. Ether is a system of divination. This is from my granddaughter. Wait, oh, you got that camera out there, getting ready to hand. Ether is a system of, and I took some of this from Baba Karaday, who's a very good, he's from New Jersey, East Orange. I haven't seen him in many years, but he wrote a nice little handbook called Handbook on Yoruba Religious Concepts. And it's good for learning the basics. And you should always learn basics before you join anything. We go joining things quick because we get all confused and lost because we really didn't master basics. And that book is almost what the Christians call a catechism. It'll give you the basic stuff. Ether is a system of divination based on 16 basic and 256 derivative figures that we call odus, obtained by the manipulation. I should have put some of the odus figures so you could understand what it is. But if I had 4 cowrie shells in my hand and I held them, I always carry some around. You know, juju people got always do juju stuff, right? So you should never leave home without at least a couple of good cowrie shells in your pocket. See, I don't think I'm kidding. See, I got cowrie shells, I got old, dried up stones, all kinds of things. You never know what'll work. Take no chances. So when I take this shell and I let you see this side, this is called the female side. And this side is called the male side. Now, when I take 16 of these and I throw it out, depending on how many sides turned up female, how many sides turned up male. But it's telling me probability and statistics says no matter how many times I throw these, I can only come up with a certain number of configurations. But in these configurations, we have designs that we derive and give meaning to our ancestors did. So in each of these designs, there's an odu or a verse that explains what it means. And in that explanation, you begin to understand your character. So it says, ether is a system of divination, and divination, well, I'll have a definition for that going into the next slide. But ether is a system of divination based on 16 basic and 256 derivative figures. So I have 16 of these, but I can get 256 figures from where I throw these 16 things, obtained by the manipulation of 16 palm nuts, or by the toss of a chain, an opele, or 8 halves, or seeds, or shells. According to Baba Karaday, each of the odu represents the epitome of Yoruba proverbial wisdom and religiosity. Each contains an enormous amount of verses, isi, and moral teaching, kiki, expressed through mythology, historical and social development, aichan, and seen through religious eyes. Divination is the practice of seeking knowledge of the future or the unknown by using Africans' indigenous sacred science, technologies, and their tools. And the other one we were describing those tools. Divination is the science of communication between gods and men and women. And I'm using gods to mean the forces of nature in this case, and the essence of the divine itself. Odu Ifa, the science of divination. Odu Ifa, the sacred text of the spiritual and the ethical tradition of Ifa. And consider Ifa, think of Ifa as the wisdom of the universe. So that those two words, distinguish the wisdom of the universe. To be more broadly defined, that's the simple context you can put it in. Odu Ifa is a body of sacred text designed essentially to answer questions of human life through the process of divination. Baba Wande Abimbola, in his study of the Odus, points out that they contain a wealth of knowledge and teachings in various fields that include art, literature, medicine, history, religion, and ethics. Odu. Each of the 16 major Odu, what they call Olodu, and the 256 minor Odu, the Amolu, is said to contain 1,680 verses. The job of the priestly of Yoruba is to learn and apply the knowledge and wisdom of the Odu so as to present ways of transcendence and salvation to spiritual seekers. So we're going to change that spiritual Dr. Noble because I got you. And it makes sense to spirit seekers. But you saw Dr. Noble today teaching you on this wisdom body. What you was watching was a priest of this wisdom school. You understand? He's not just a professor, he's the priest of this wisdom school who have mastered to a great degree this body of wisdom our ancestors left for us to figure out life. The four gates by which God's power passes into the material via humans is through right thinking, right speech, right feeling, right action. The four gates by which God's power passes into the material via humans through right thinking, right speech, right feeling, right action. God expressed himself in the world through the 7 kingdoms, the mineral kingdoms, the vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdom, the human kingdom, the insect kingdom, the fowl bird kingdom, and the marine kingdom. I could spend all day just doing one thing, but that's your Bible's tape. Y'all go over this all the time. Okay. Africans see God as a totality of creation. That is every and all things at once. The way people of Togo call this Togmelisa, or Voodoo Dasi, the essence of God and man. The word voodoo actually means, in some context, the essence of the divine. So if you want to say the essence of God in man, you say voodoo dasi. If you want to say the essence of God in nature, you say voodoo daha. So the white folks took our God essence, one of our languages' definition of God's essence, just as they took the Intu and the Bantu, and they took that and made that a negative. They took this word, which meant the same thing as the Intu, and made it a negative. When you look at any of our languages, when you talk about person, people, place, or thing, either the prefix or the suffix means the divine. Go to the next one. Is their word for divine. Ancestors to your pedigree, you learn your pedigree from your history. God is your original ancestor. And people define themselves by referring to their origin. We are the best of our ancestors' genes, we are the latest versions of our ancestors, we are the highest tech version of our ancestor. Our children are the best of our genes and the latest version and the highest tech one. We are but expressions of aspects of the divine essence having the human experience. We must know that we are spirits in transition. The great light, the divine, brought out of itself smaller lights. It is only through constant replication that the great light, the divine, continues to exist and know that it exists. Each small light represents an aspect of the personality of essence of the great light, the divine. Yes, we are all expressions of aspects of the divine having the human experience. So this is very important to really grasp and to understand that we must know that we are spirits in transition. In the Yoruba theology, they have a concept called Awo, A-W-O. And even though that A-W-O has multiple meanings, one of the meanings is that we come and we go. And what they say is that each human being, when you're born in the family that you were originally created in as a human being. You never change that bloodline. So 10 billion years ago, you, the family you were born in, that's the same family that you're still coming back in. Okay? And it says we come back. We believe in reincarnation, but you'll only come back as a human being, and you'll only come in what they call your Ibi, I-B-I, in the family that you're originally in. And you have 8 times to come and go to perfect yourself. And in each coming, you have 12 steps, ethically, morally, and principally, that you must master. If you don't master it, when you finish your 8, you got 8 more, you got to come back again. Until you get to the point where you can be what they call an Orisha, or you can become one with the divine again. And so when you go and you're not finished, you go to your other ancestors, and they help refashion you, redesign you, redirect you, and let you come back as energy in the form of a baby again. That's our theology. That's our belief system. That's what we've been teaching each other for centuries, before we were rudely interrupted by the crazies. So I'm almost finished now. But these are just photographs. These are not real. These are, you can't see them well, but these are all someone's rendition of what some of the Orishas look like. So go on, but I'll take a few that I say. This is such a beautiful, the light is killing it. That's such a beautiful picture of Obatala that was done by a brother, I think he's from Oakland. I used this when I was doing my class, and he called me the very next day. I sent him $200 and a letter of agreement, and I got to use the picture, which I should have done in the beginning, but I didn't know who he was, but he didn't know. But it's fantastic. He's talking about Obatala, creator of human form, elder of the Orishas. We have a Genesis story. In our Genesis story, our divine element, which is called Olodumare, decided to create Earth. So he sent, who did he send Naya to with the cargo shell to empty out some Earth? I think another comedian, was it the comedian? One of them. But anyway, then he sent the bird down, or a pigeon or something, to scatter the Earth around so that it becomes the globe that we know today. And then he sent this woman down, one of his beautiful daughters, Oshun. And this is before he sent the Ramula, the great prophet. And she was the one that had the only tools to divine. But poor Oshun didn't do her work, and there was a hole in her pocket, and she lost the 16 cards. So her brother Ramula picked it up. So till this day, Ramula represents the school of thought that produces the priest of Ifa, that teaches us how to do the divination and to teach us the wisdom school. But in all of our folklore, there's a whole institution of wisdom. That same Oshun, and the young ladies all want to be Oshun. Everybody say Oshun is sensuality, Oshun is beauty, Oshun is all of these things. But Oshun is one of the most powerful warlike of all of the Orishas. And there's a story about this village of women. The women at war fighting with each other. And even God had the trouble to get these women to behave. So he sends all the elders down from Orun, which is heaven. And they come down to earth, but nobody can make these people listen. Women do it, you know what y'all women do, troublemakers. And so they come back up to Orun and tell the creator, we can't do nothing. So he sends all of the senior Orishas. The women beat them up, they go back and say to Olodumare, you need to go yourself, because these women's not listening to anybody. Then Oshun came marching into the village with her little water pail on her head, playing her little music and dancing. And she says to the divine, she says, Olodumare, let me go. And then everybody laughed at her and said, oh, Oshun, go out there, look cute, put on your makeup, get your mirror, do your thing. And the divine said, no, let's send Oshun down. So Shun comes and she hears all over the world, the war is going on, the women are tearing up villages, they're fighting, and she starts singing. And she starts dancing. And she starts playing her tambourine. And she starts playing her drum rhythm. And all of a sudden the women hear the harmony and the rhythm that is common, that is Ma'achian. And they start fighting, and they start dancing, and they start singing, and they start playing their rhythm. And that ends the war of women on earth. And that's Oshun. So the power wasn't the sword. The power wasn't the gun. The power wasn't an army. The power was harmony. You know, the power was peace. The power was tuning in the rhythm that was in her with the rhythm that was in the rest of the feminine population. That's just one of our folklores that tells such a, I love that story. You getting ahead of me, baby? I ain't saying you could ask no questions. You don't like you, but way up there in the game. Go to the next one. I know why you like Yamajana. You feel like Yamajana. I know. Go ahead. Now here's our brother, Alegba. And this necklace here represents Legba, black and red. And so Legba represents the messenger to the Orishas. He's supposed to be taking message between all the Orishas, the message between us and the Orishas, the message between God and the Orishas, and God and us. So that's a very powerful figure. This is a figure way that I consider to be the God of psychology. Because when he's at the crossroads, you got to make decisions. That's what a crossroads means. If you don't make a decision, you got a psychological problem. You're going to have conflicts. And so this, to me, represents the school of psychology at its epitome when we study this particular object. This is not a person. This is a, statue representing, symbolizing, but you're talking about a whole school of thought, sets of ideas, principles, and concepts that represents building the human character's relationship to the rest of creation. Go to the next. This is Olokumu, owner of the sea. This is a mudfish. Mudfish does what? Live on the bottom of the ocean. Olokumu is considered to be the father and the husband to Yemajana. Now what Olokumu, and go to the next one. The other symbol of Olokumu is this head of a man here, which is one of the prominent symbols, and you'll see. But Olokumu represents that part of bodies of water where photosynthesis does not take place. The part of water that sunlight does not penetrate. That is Olokumu. So think of the science involved and the technology involved of understanding that process. And our ancestors knew that back then. And even today, everybody said that life began in that space, in that darkness, in that body of water. And that life is given germination. Go to the next one. When it comes up to this is another celebration of Olokumu and how the dancers dress. Go to the next one. When it comes up to the water where it's penetrated and impregnated by the sunlight, then Yemajana gives birth to all things that become the living things. So in that sense, the Yemajana is symbolic of the nurturer. She's the mother. She's the one that brings forth the life. And one of the very powerful principles in understanding our notion of understanding nature and cosmology. Go to the next one. This is Oshun. I went through Oshun. Go to the next one. And this is Shango, god of lightning, fire, and thunder, kingly, courage, virtual magnetism. And people like Shango. Brothers all want to be Shango. All of them want to walk around looking at the muscle thing and carrying the axe thing. But Shango represents the courage within a human being to change themselves into a higher spiritual self. That courage to tell you, today, I'm making that change. Today, I'm going to study. Today, I'm going to make a phone call to somebody and ask them questions. I am not afraid to change me from this behavior that has been identified as me. And when that courage called Shango happens, it must fall in love with and marry. Go to the next one. It must fall in love with and marry Oya. Oya is change in process. Once you develop the courage to change, then you must go through the process of changing, of being changed. So Oya becomes change in process. And then the women like Oya because she's supposed to be the beautiful woman, the warrior type with the dreadlocks and everything, running through the forest, you know. She can transform herself into the antelope and other kinds of things. But she's the wife of Shango. And then she marries another man, so that's polyandry. So she said, yo, y'all gonna have your polygamy? We got our polyandry. And Oya represents that phenomenon. Go to the next one. But when Oya, change in process, marries Ogun, Ogun, who's the god of iron and war and the creator of civilization, Ogun is symbolic of iron because iron is a piece of rock, dirty, crusty rock you get out of the ground, but you put it in fire. And you use that fire to burn out the impurities. And what do? You transform that rock into steel that becomes a useful instrument to transform your ecology. And so the courage to change, which is Shango, marries changing process, which is Oya, who marries transformation as a result of change, which is Ogun. You understand? And you can find this kind of folk scenario with all of the symbols of these forces of nature that we call Orisha. Go to the next one. That was the last one. The whole idea of us doing what we're doing today, and Sister Bobby and the organization bringing us out here is to talk to us about transforming ourselves into what we were originally created to be. Something has tampered with our process, our journey. That something is the ignorance we call Eurocentrism. Looks like it's highly technical, it flies to the moon, but then we found out they wouldn't have gotten up there if it wasn't for a couple of sisters in the back room. Right? So, am I right? Right. They had to come out of the closet with, so we know they didn't fly to the moon. We flew them to the moon. I think it was Dr. Nobles who said the Civil War, that was you and Dr. J. Talking to Dr. J. That the Civil War wasn't Abraham Lincoln, but it was us. Without us, everybody still be Whistling Dixie. We won that war. We had nearly 300,000 people wearing the blue uniform and about 2 million behind the lines in one capacity or the other, fighting to bring down that Confederacy. But that ignorance, underdeveloped, mutant element who operates from a space of almost total inferiority towards us have used brute force to set the agenda of our daily behaviors. And we need to change that by getting back to this. So I think Dr. Noble said power is the ability to define your reality and have other people accept your definition of your reality as if it were their own. And the way to find your way back is study your history, study your culture, study your family. And even the worst of us is the best of us. You may reject the fact that a member of the family is an alcoholic or a junkie or have committed a crime, but do not reject the being that did those things. Because their situation gives you purpose. Because if your purpose isn't to redeem the worst of us, then what purpose do you have? But before you can get there, you must redeem yourself. But in redeeming yourself, you must realize that your first responsibility is to reach back and redeem your brother and your sister. What we've been doing is saying that we can get out. Bye. How they got their name? Booyah. I'm out of here. Y'all do your thing. The first responsibility we have when we begin to find consciousness is to find a way to help others find consciousness. The first responsibility you have once you can eat and get strength is to find someone else who needs to eat and help them get strength. I think maybe referring to that as humility. That the more you learn, the greater servant you must become, otherwise you're worthless. And it meant you haven't learned anything. And that's what our culture is about. That's what our system of understanding divinity is about. It's about becoming the divine. The sun don't ask you for anything. The rain don't ask you for anything. The wind don't ask you for anything. Earth that feeds us don't ask us for anything. They're in total humility to us, and yet we totally disrespect them. So just think of it. Think of the Africa that we got snatched out of. Not of buildings or whether it's cosmopolitan, modern, high-tech society, because that don't mean nothing. We have that over here. We have more murders and rape than any civilization in the history of the world. So that don't mean very much. Think of the human being that see as its greatest aspiration its ability to use the knowledge of the ancestors to begin to replicate itself as divinity itself. That's what we were talking about today. That's what your life should be about, because that's what African culture is about. So thank you very much.
Stand up for the God.
Well, did you guys have a wonderful day today? Yeah. It's a powerful day. This is Georgia Moment. 3 Master Scholars here on the stage here in Sacramento. Well, I want to say, on behalf of African Americans for Balanced, it brings me great pleasure to have the opportunity to honor you, our master teachers, who have devoted most of their lives researching our culture and not only telling us about Africa, but also taking us to Africa to show that we have a culture of excellence and offerings, that we played a part in developing nations, civilizations, and cultures, that our history is an inseparable part of history of mankind. Thank you for your vital, pioneering work for teaching us why it is important to identify as Africans. Thank you for telling us that we're inspirational, unique, beautiful people. Thank you for telling us the truth so we can recognize our fullness. We have Lifetime Achievement Awards for all 3 of you. And this is what Lifetime Achievement Award honoring Dr. Wade Nobles in recognition of your exemplary work as a teacher, author, lecturer of African history to the communities. With great appreciation, African Americans for Balanced, Sacramento, California, October 28, 2017. It says the same, and this goes to Dr. Leonard Jeffries.